Hey, it's Scientist Rogers here. We are in the midst of our ecosystems lesson, and this is really going to go along with lesson 3 and what we have in Schoology. Miss Frank may or may not have already talked to you about this part of our ecosystem, and it is known as our terrarium. Now, no one walks around talking about a terrarium because that's where we live. It's literally everywhere on land. So what we have in our terrarium, we'll see, is you have your earth particles, the dirt layer, and the stone layer. And we actually have way more stone layer than dirt on Earth. We have things like gravel, we have limestone, sandstone, granite, all sorts of condensed stone. And honestly, that's where archaeologists and paleontologists dig into to find remains from a long, long time ago. So if you haven't already, what you're going to do is you're going to end up adding and building this terrarium where we add seeds and then a little bit later some other critters. But I'm going to put that to the side and talk about one of the largest ecosystems that's almost so big it's hard to conceptualize. And that is known as our aquarium. Now, yes, I can have a bowl with a fish in it. It's not technically an aquarium. An aquarium is an entire ecosystem. Okay? So what we have here is we have some items to build a self-sustaining environment. Both of those things include living and non-living things like we heard about in our terrarium. Now in our aquarium, we're going to have our rock layer, and that ends up being the base of the ocean. The sand and the dirt and the debris and the sunken ships, all those things are at the bottom, and that's what the gravel is going to serve a purpose as. We also obviously have water, and that's where these critters live. Now, some of these critters are traditional animals, and some of them are plant life, because plant life, just like on land, is super important. One of the really important ones is this one, and it kind of looks just like a gross green drink, and this is known as algae. Too little of it, and realistically, say goodbye to planet Earth. Too much of it, and it can get out of hand as what's known as an algae bloom and create a lot of trouble in that water environment. But just the right amount is super important. It really makes it possible for everything else to survive. Algae is a plant, super tiny in water, that replicates super quickly. So we're gonna have to add something that keeps this under control. In addition to that, we also have these items that kind of look like 4-leaf clovers, but they're in the water. And if you come in here, you can kind of see there is a ton of this item, and it is known as duckweed, okay? The duckweed is all on the surface. It is very popular with ducks, obviously why it gets its name, but more than anything, it is the main food source. And the last item, and I have some in here, but it's a little less messy here, of what we call freshwater seaweed, or Elodea, right? And this is going to serve as much to add oxygen to the water as housing for our critters. Now, Miss Frank, I'm going to have you get super close. We have our fun items in here, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but we have 2 items. One is known as our mosquito fish, and they're super well known because what they love to do is go to the top of the surface where mosquitoes lay their eggs and chomp them down. That keeps the mosquitoes that no one really likes under control. On the other side, we have a very slow-moving, kind of gross version of escargot. No, we're not eating these snails, but what's really important about them is they actually suck to the side of our container and keep the algae kind of at that level of not getting out of control. So these 2 critters are going to be the living animals for our aquarium. So we have duckweed, we have algae, and we have Elodea as our plant life, each serving a purpose, our snails and our fish. And maybe we'll add some recordings where Miss Frank kind of zooms in and lets you see some of the fish, but you're going to do some observations on these items about size and shape and how many and color, those type features, as we progress through lesson 3. So, really cool. We're going to be adding them into our aquarium, and a little bit of preview. Eventually, we're going to join our terrarium and aquarium, making a complete eco column. That's what's to come. We'll check you next time.